what was supposed to be the last one, 65th class reunion. Gave me a chance to think about what's happened in all these years and where we go from here. And you had the Industrial Revolution and all those kinds of things. Well, my 85 years, 83 years, a lot's happened. But I brought this to get a little perspective of numbers. And I brought this for a little perspective of numbers. And I'll bring up some. This tiny little thing here is just a little bit bigger, about twice as big as a cubic millimeter, which you can't see. You put a million together, and you can barely lift this thing. So that's a million. Here, this is a kind of embarrassing question I've asked many adults. How many million does it take to make a billion? And I quit asking because it's sort of embarrassing. I asked my dad, he got it wrong. I've asked some other people I thought should know, and they got it wrong. So it takes 1,000 million. Now that everybody's into the computers, you got giga and all that stuff, that helps to know everything goes by thousands. So I want to give a perspective of what a billion is. So you take that tiny little thing, which that was a big one, a cubic millimeter, which is, you can't even see. It would take 1 million of them along the bottom here. And so this is a cubic meter. It's 1,000 high, so 1,000 times a million is a billion. So if you want to get some perspective, if you're walking around, say, India, and you're one of a billion people, that'd be you, and this is all the rest of the people. Well, I bring this up because when Lucy was born, the first Lucy, 5 billion years ago, until Jesus was born, it took that long of period of humans before we had 200 million people. When I was born, and Lucy was born, the second Lucy, there were 2 billion people. Now, if I can live a little bit longer, there'll be 8 billion people. In my lifetime, we went from 2 billion to almost 8 billion. I'd like to give this talk again when I'm 100 so I can kind of update you on what's happening. So, in my lifetime, we've gone from 2 billion, we've tripled, went from 4 billion. In fact, I made an exhibit, I did this at the Science Center once, and I said, when I did it, I made a big sign, there's 5 billion. Great. Well, they keep changing the billion people, and so it's kind of obsolete, because every time I make a sign, they'd add another billion people. Now, the scary thing is, of course, it's getting bigger. In 1996, I've got all my fact checkers in the back row, so you correct me later. In 1996, I think, was when the birth rate of the world was at its max. Since then, it's tapered off, because it'd been much worse, but it kept going. So it kind of varies, and I'm not sure why, the third world countries probably don't have access to birth control stuff, so I'm not, they die off, but, plague here and there has killed a few people, but still, it continues to grow. So in maybe 5 or 6 years, it'll be 8 billion. Holy cow. What's that mean? It means we got 3 times as many potential Einsteins, but 3 times as many Saddam Husseins. Well, that's kind of scary. So what does this all mean? So that kind of leads to other things that are troubling me, where we go from here. The dinosaurs were here for 230 million years ago to 70 million years ago. Not much happened except they ate each other until that asteroid hit and killed them all. In my lifetime, I've seen World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, the Iran, Afghanistan, some other miscellaneous wars. The national debt, the U.S. national debt, went from 33 billion when I was born to 22 trillion now. Yikes. I've seen jets developed. You know, we developed jets in my lifetime, and now we go supersonic, and now we have hovercraft and quadricopters. They're doing incredibly good things. And all these things they go through, they're good things and bad things. Well, now an Army, instead of sending few airplanes, they can send little hovercraft, tens or 100,000 little with horrible things on them that are becoming hard to stop. So all these things are good and have bad things. For instance, plastics. Hey, that was great. Man, that sure makes things. Hey, this is plastic. Everything's great plastic. Now the latest fact I've heard to summarize everything, in a few years there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. That's not so good. And of course, as you probably follow the news, it doesn't deteriorate. It takes thousands of years to go from plastic to whatever else. But it breaks down and so you can't see it anymore. Well, it's now plankton size, so then it's the bottom of the food chain. So, and what to do about that? The nuclear energies in my lifetime, well, that's sort of a good thing and a bad thing. And now we went from bombs to medicine to aircraft being nuclear powered, nuclear waste. So good thing and bad thing. The DNA is in my lifetime. Now we've got GMO, cloning animals, and soon probably cloning humans. Because you got a lot of reputable, smart, good people, you got a lot of smart, bad people. So even though we have ethics, it's not going to stop a really smart, bad person to do whatever he wants somewhere in the world. The computers, my lifetime, we went, as you know, we're all now up to, I guess, the most significant thing is Stephen Hawking said AI, artificial intelligence, will be the end of the world. And I think Elon Musk said it. If I said it, you probably wouldn't pay attention, but they said, well, maybe something to that. But, you know, like the movie Hal in 2001, wasn't it? You know, Hal sort of took over, and they think that somehow that's going to happen. The lasers, my lifetime. Now we have laser, great things, weapons, as well as medical things, and my lifetime. I mean, I didn't do it all, but part of the population thing. Lucy Boss, there's 18 people has her DNA, and I might have been part of that. I'm not sure. In the TV, I can remember sitting in my lunch room at home, 10 years old, reading Popular Science magazine, and they had a picture of this radio, and it had a little window in it, and you actually could see the person talking on the radio. That was cool. And now it's everywhere. And now the scary thing is, we've come to the point, and this may happen before the election, deep fake. Does everybody know what that is?
No.
They can take a picture of Donald Trump or anybody and make them say whatever they want, and you can't tell the difference. So just before the election, this could be gone around. By the time somebody figured it out, it might be too late. So that's pretty scary. Air conditioning, my lifetime. Air conditioning is great. Do I really want everybody in the world to have air conditioning? Cute little kids in Nigeria and all those places. It'd probably be the end of the world if everybody had air conditioning, using up the energy and contributing to the global warming. In the case of astronomy, when I was born, we knew pretty much the Milky Way. Since then, we discovered, oops, there's 100 billion more galaxies. And once they put up the Webb telescope, it'll be 7 times more powerful than the telescope we have now. Well, everything we know now will probably be obsolete. But 100 billion galaxies, oh, there's a billion. So fill those with little tiny millimeters, and all of a sudden you get some perspective of 100 billion of these things. And then each galaxy has 100 billion stars in it. Holy cow, that's a lot of things going on out there. Well, do they have planets? Well, now we've discovered, in addition to our planets, at least 5,000 more planets orbit stars nearby us, and think what happens to all those ones we can't see. So there's probably billions and billions and billions and trillions of planets out there. Is there life on them? Most scientists think probably. Statistically, yeah. That leads me to the fossil fuels. Fossil fuels took millions of years to put the oil and gas, and not necessarily the gas, but the oil and the coal in the ground, and we're using it up like in a heartbeat. And what's that lead to? I've got a video here I'm going to show, but the greenhouse gas, as you add the carbon dioxide, it becomes like a greenhouse. A greenhouse lets the light in, and the frequency of the light waves change and can't get it back out, and therefore it stays. It's just like putting glass around the planet. The methane gas is even worse than the carbon dioxide, and the greenhouse is melting the permafrost. I'm sure you see us all in the news, and it's keeping worse and worse, and more storms, forest fires, and now it leads me to, if this works. Come on.
You need to turn the TV on again?
Yeah, it powered off.
Turn off the TV too?
It powers on by itself.
Yeah.
Oh man, high tech leads to stuff like this.
We need some AI.
Man, sure worked 5 minutes ago really fast.
Okay, it's on.
You should have been here an hour ago and it worked great. I'm sure you've heard by now of Greta Thunberg. If you haven't, you will.
When I was about 8 years old, I first heard about something called climate change or global warming. Apparently that was something humans had created by our way of living. I was told to turn off the lights to save energy and to recycle paper to save resources. I remember thinking that it was very strange that humans, who are an animal species among others, could be capable of changing the Earth's climate. Because if we were, and if it was really happening, we wouldn't be talking about anything else. As soon as you turn on the TV, everything would be about that. Headlines, radio, newspapers. You would never read or hear about anything else. As if there was a world war going on. But no one ever talked about it. If burning fossil fuels was so bad that it threatened our very existence, how could we just continue like before? Why were there no restrictions? Why wasn't it made illegal? To me, that did not add up. It was too unreal. So when I was 11, I became ill. I fell into depression. I stopped talking and I stopped eating. In 2 months, I lost about 10 kilos of weight. Later on, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, OCD, and selective mutism. That basically means I only speak when I think it's necessary. And that was one of those moments. are on the spectrum, almost everything is black or white. We aren't very good at lying, and we usually don't enjoy participating in the social game that the rest of you seem so fond of. I think in many ways that we autistic are the normal ones, and the rest of the people are pretty strange. Especially when it comes to the sustainability crisis, where everyone keeps saying that climate change is an existential threat and the most important issue of all, and yet they just carry on like before. I don't understand that, because if the emissions have to stop, then we must stop the emissions. To me, that is black or white. There are no grey areas when it comes to survival. Either we go on as a civilization or we don't. We have to change. Rich countries like Sweden need to start reducing emissions by at least 15% every year. And that is so that we can stay below a 2-degree warming target. Yet, as the IPCC have recently demonstrated, aiming instead for 1.5 degrees Celsius will significantly reduce the climate impacts. But we can only imagine what that means for reducing emissions. You would think the media and every one of our leaders would be talking about nothing else, but they never even mention it. Nor does anyone ever mention the greenhouse gases already locked in the system, nor that air pollution is hiding a warming, so that when we stop burning fossil fuels, we already have an extra level of warming, perhaps as high as 0.5 to 1.1 degrees Celsius. Furthermore, does hardly anyone speak about the fact that we are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, with up to 200 species going extinct every single day. That the extinction rate is today between 1,000 and 10,000 times higher than what is seen as normal. Nor does hardly anyone ever speak about the aspect of equity or climate justice, clearly stated everywhere in the Paris Agreement, which is absolutely necessary to make it work on a global scale. That means that rich countries need to get down to 0 emissions within 6 to 12 years with today's emission speed. And that is so that people in poorer countries can have a chance to heighten their standard of living by building some of the infrastructure that we have already built, such as roads, schools, hospitals, clean drinking water, electricity, and so on. Because how can we expect countries like India or Nigeria to care about the climate crisis if we, who already have everything, don't care even a second about it or our actual commitments to the Paris Agreement? So, why are we not reducing our emissions? Why are they in fact still increasing? Are we knowingly causing a mass extinction? Are we evil? No, of course not. People keep doing what they do because the vast majority doesn't have a clue about the actual consequences of our everyday life. And they don't know the rapid changes required. We all think we know, and we all think everybody knows, but we don't. Because how could we? If there really was a crisis, and if this crisis was caused by our emissions, you would at least see some signs. Not just flooded cities, tens of thousands of dead people, and whole nations leveled to piles of torn down buildings. You would see some restrictions. But no, and no one talks about it. There are no emergency meetings, no headlines, no breaking news. No one is acting as if we were in a crisis. Even most climate scientists or green politicians keep on flying around the world, eating meat and dairy. If I live to be 100, I will be alive in the year 2103. When you think about the future today, you don't think beyond the year 2050. By then, I will, in the best case, not even have lived half of my life. What happens next? The year 2078, I will celebrate my 75th birthday. If I have children or grandchildren, maybe they will spend that day with me. Maybe they will ask me about you, the people who were around back in 2018. Maybe they will ask why you didn't do anything while there still was time to act. What we do or don't do right now will affect my entire life and the lives of my children and grandchildren. What we do or don't do right now, me and my generation can't undo in the future. So when school started in August this year, I decided that this was enough. I sat myself down on the ground outside the Swedish parliament. I school striked for the climate. Some people say that I should be in school instead. Some people say that I should study to become a climate scientist so that I can solve the climate crisis. But the climate crisis has already been solved. We already have all the facts and solutions. All we have to do is to wake up and change. And why should I be studying for a future that soon will be no more, when no one is doing anything whatsoever to save their future? And what is the point of learning facts within the school system, when the most important facts given by the finest science of that same school system clearly means nothing to our politicians and our society? Some people say that Sweden is just a small country and that it doesn't matter what we do. But I think that if a few children can get headlines all over the world just by not going to school for a few weeks, imagine what we could all do together if we wanted to. Now we're almost at the end of my talk. And this is where people usually start talking about hope. Solar panels, wind power, circular economy, and so on. But I'm not going to do that. We've had 30 years of pep talking and selling positive ideas. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't work. Because if it would have, the emissions would have gone down by now. They haven't. And yes, we do need hope. Of course we do. But the one thing we need more than hope is action. Once we start to act, hope is everywhere. So instead of looking for hope, look for action. Then, and only then, hope will come. Today, we use 100 million barrels of oil every single day. There are no politics to change that. There are no rules to keep that oil in the ground. So we can't save the world by playing by the rules. Because the rules have to be changed. Everything needs to change. And it has to start today. Thank you.
In about a week, she'll be talking to the United Nations. Well, how do you get from Sweden to the United Nations without using a lot of energy? You hop on a sailboat, which she's just done. She took 2 weeks. It was a really good sailboat. It had solar panels and an engine. And so 2 weeks ago, she took off, and Monday, I think she landed in New York. So she was on the cover of Time magazine. She's talked to the Pope and Al Gore and AOC. She thinks it's a waste of time to talk to Trump.
She's right.
But, so I was very impressed by her, and I'd like to have one of your guys, when they're my age, come up here and give a talk and see what happened since I've been gone. So,
Don't make it that long.
thank you. That concludes my talk.
Thank you.